Aimen, thank you so much for joining us here at RiskMinds. What challenges do you foresee with your customers going forward when it comes to regulations and the implementation of those?
So for us, it's actually a question of pace, first of all, because what we see on the market is that we're having a lot of regulations that are coming in. If you look at MiFID II in the past, for instance, FRTB is coming, we have SSCR as well. It's really becoming a question of having one big milestone each year that you need to fulfill. That's the first challenge. And the second challenge is to have all your data in one place, because a lot of requirements in terms of data come back to this. If you have information that is scattered a bit everywhere, it becomes very difficult to manage in a timely manner all the challenges that you have around regulation. So these are really the two axes on which we are working, and FRTB is a good example for that. So if we take, for instance, the non-modelable risk factor challenge, banks that don't have necessarily a centralized platform for the risk, most of the work of the FRTB programs is around actually ensuring that that data is compliant between different systems and also available into one source.
So when you talked about FRTB there, I mean, what impact will that have, and how do banks begin to sort of mitigate for what the actual outcome might be? Because they almost need to have a crystal ball, don't they?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's a challenge in itself because the initial text was quite complex to implement. So and not everyone was sure about the impact it's going to have in its trading activities in general, because the capital charges were high and so on. But what we've seen recently is that with the latest Basel paper that was released for consultation in March 2018, is that it's going in the right direction, in a sense that at the same point in time we are keeping the spirit of the initial text, which was really to tightly couple front office and risk systems together, so that you're ensuring that your risk function is really controlling what the front office is doing. So that's kept in the latest papers, but at the same point in time we see that the regulators and the banks are sitting together in order to try to find a balance between things like, am I putting the right capital buffers in place in order to protect actually the trading, and at the same point in time having enough incentives to go internal model, for instance, for the bank. So that's one of the key aspects of where the market is going.
What are your instincts telling you about what role the regulators are playing? Are they the protectors or are they helping innovation?
That's a very good question. It's actually they are sitting in the middle, in the sense that they need to protect the business, and we see that if you take CRR2 in Europe, which is a good example of that, we see that the regulation was changed slightly by the European regulator so that it fits within the framework of the trading that is being done in Europe. So that's quite important.
So what does all of this mean for somebody like you who's a software vendor?
So clearly for us, we are a technology provider. So what is important for us is to give the right solutions for our clients so that they can do the job properly and in coping with those regulations. So at the same point in time, we need to be completely flexible and transparent so that they can put in place the right strategies, especially the banks that are going IMA route, for instance, for FRTB. What they need to put in place is something that a risk model that explains really their particularities and really how their market is evolving. That's on one hand. On the other hand, what we're seeing also is that you have a lot of standardized approaches like FRTB SA, for instance, SIM approach on initial margin for bilateral transactions. All those building blocks, what we're seeing on our side, that have a lot of commonality. So it's very important to have, let's say, one centralized platform that does all of that for you and leveraging on blocks that are very similar together. That's a key challenge. And the third point is really around technology. We are a technology provider, so that's also important for us. If we take examples like the TRIM, which is a targeted review of internal model that happened last year, for instance, in Europe specifically, a lot of banks were asked to do a lot more calculation than what they used to do on a daily basis, let's say. And what we see is on the market is that the cloud adoption is helping with that, because the elasticity of the cloud allow you to have that capacity and adjust it to what your need. So we worked closely with AWS and Azure, for instance, so that our computation power can be transferred also to the cloud, so that you can benefit from that elasticity, and that's a key challenge.
So the banks need to seek out expertise, and you're excited and sound very positive about, the challenges are there, but there's great opportunity too.
Definitely. I mean, it's a changing landscape, and we need to benefit from that changing landscape in order to drive programs that will root the banks into really the economy and be able actually to cope with those challenges in a timely manner. That's a
collaborative approach.
Exactly.
Aimen, thank you so much for joining us. It's been good to talk to you.
Thanks for welcoming us.